Namaste and welcome to another episode in our series, What's in a Word? Here we'll be delving into the origins and background of certain everyday English words that we use when talking about or explaining Hindu Dharmas. I'm your host, Samir Kalra, one of the managing directors at HAF, and I'm joined by my handsome colleague and HAF's Director of Education, Dr. Vijay Satnarine. Welcome, Vijay.
Thank you for having me.
So, Vijay, today we're going to be talking about the word mythology. When I searched for the definition of mythology, the dictionaries point out a few different meanings attached to the word. The Cambridge Dictionary, for example, places the definition most commonly associated with Hindus first, namely that mythology refers to untrue stories, a popular belief that is probably not true. Vijay, can you tell us where the word mythology originates from?
Sure. The word comes to English through French, and that itself comes from Latin and then originally from the Greek mythologia. It's a compound word, logia, or the study of, and mythos, which originally meant ancient lore or received stories.
And why should we avoid using mythology as a translation for Hindu stories?
So words accrete different meanings over time. For example, the English word sick didn't originally have the layer of meaning with which we use it now, in the senses of excellent or all right or fashionable. Similarly, although mythos originally meant stories that were passed down, legends or lore, since the 1840s, mythology is more popularly understood to refer to unverifiable, ahistoric, non-scientific, or unprovable stories, and are thus nonsensical and superstitious. People that use sources of knowledge that are categorized as mythology, therefore, are unfortunately basing their entire worldviews on unscientific, unprovable, and thus superstitious and nonsensical beliefs and stories. Before the 1800s, missionaries of various religions used the fact that Hindu teachings were quote-unquote false or satanical in order to justify proselytization. But during the 1800s, when the British Empire, where even Semitic religions were on a decline, and thus even the Bible, etc., being labeled as mythology by scientists in the Age of Enlightenment in Europe, colonists still found justification in subjugating Hindu and other dharmic peoples because ultimately they were based on superstitious and illogical mythology.
So ultimately, knowingly or unknowingly, when people use the term mythology, it in essence diminishes the importance or value of Hindu stories. Is that accurate, Vijay?
I thoroughly agree.
Okay. And so can you tell us what a better alternative word would be to use rather than mythology?
Using linguistic science, we could hone in on a more appropriate term. So if we're discussing itihasas like the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, the word itihasa literally means thus it was, referring to traditional accounts of former events. The category of sources of knowledge known as the Puranas, like the Bhagavata Purana or the Shiva Purana, literally means knowledge of former times, referring to ancient lore. So instead of Hindu mythology or mythology, depending which accent you have, and of course Hindu mythology really meaning Hindu false stories, and also, despite not being 100% equivalent, we should be able to use the word Hindu historical stories or ancient tales.
One question I often hear is, what about the term epics? Would that be appropriate in some of these circumstances?
Sure, where people are comfortable with that word, epics also works.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Vijay. I know mythology is a very common term, unfortunately, that we hear constantly attached to Hindu stories. So this has been a very valuable session and a great way for us to be able to use alternative language going forward to ensure that our stories and our history is not diminished. And thank you to all of you for joining us for another episode of What's in a Word. Vijay, we'll see you again soon on our next episode. So everyone, please do stay tuned. Namaste and thank you.
Namaste. Thank you.